Why is she acting hot and cold? However, if you've asked this question, you may be asking the wrong question. The real question should be, what is triggering this hot and cold behavior? Understanding the difference between these two changes everything. So in this video, I'm going to break down hot and cold behavior, why it's not what most people think it is, and I'm going to talk about how to respond effectively. Understanding the difference between hot and cold actions versus what triggers hot and cold actions is really crucial. Understanding this changes everything. Learning how to identify the triggers. Once you learn how to identify these triggers that create hot and cold behaviors, you're going to be able to respond in a way that creates safety and brings your partner closer to you. Mastering your relationship relies on mastering this skill. So it can be easy to fall into this impression of her actions don't make sense. This hot and cold behavior doesn't make logical sense. One minute she says she loves me, the next minute she is pushing me away. She's saying that she's having doubts about the relationship. What is this? The thing is, this hot and cold behavior does actually make sense if you understand the defense mechanism built into every human being on this planet. Our inbuilt emotional defense mechanism is a powerful instinctive behavior that shapes our actions within relationships. It's not malicious and it's not personal to you. It's just a protective force that we have evolved as human beings to keep us safe in our most vulnerable connections. When our emotional defense mechanism feels a threat, whether it's a real threat or a perceived threat, it triggers these emotional responses within ourselves, which means that we perform emotional actions. All actions are filtered through emotions. And understanding that your partner's hot and cold behaviors are part of this emotional defense mechanism. The thing is, you experiencing this hot and cold behavior can trigger your emotional defense mechanism as well. So understanding that this happens to everyone is really crucial in order to stop this becoming a feedback loop. Most people react to hot and cold signals in a way that backfires, right? That creates a bigger problem. They can push for answers, withdraw emotionally, or lash out in frustration. These reactions are like pouring gasoline on a fire. This intensifies this emotional defense mechanism, and it creates a vicious cycle of emotional distance between you and your partner. Depending on your experience, some people can develop a more sensitive defense mechanism. Sometimes people can want it always to be on high alert, ready to sound the alarm at the slightest hint of danger. And understanding this emotional defense mechanism is going to start to transform these hot and cold behaviors from frustrating mysteries into clear, actionable steps in order to rebuild the connection and the trust within your relationship. It's important to know that your partner isn't trying to confuse you. They're not trying to manipulate you. Their defense mechanism is trying to create safety in the only way that it knows how. But the most critical part is there are specific triggers, actions you might be doing without realizing it. They activate your partner's defense mechanism, kind of like a tripwire. So to start to repair and rebuild this relationship, you need to start identifying what is setting off this hot and cold behavior. So you could be activating your partner's emotional defense mechanism through very common behaviors. So the first trigger can be a lack of decisiveness. One of the most overlooked triggers is indecisiveness. You as a partner are unable or unwilling to take initiative. It can leave your partner feeling unsupported, insecure, and like they're carrying the emotional load of the relationship alone. And this triggers the defense mechanism. Being decisive signals leadership and reliability. When you hesitate or defer too often, if you're constantly saying, what do you want to do? What do you think we should do? This can feel like you're coming from a place of care, but actually it can signal that you're very indecisive and you don't trust your decisions enough. And this can create a sense of instability within your partner. Your partner's subconscious can interpret this as a lack of commitment or indifference. If it feels like you're sat on the fence of whether you see a future with this relationship or not, this indecisiveness in itself can trigger massively this hot and cold behavior within your partner. They feel it from you and can sense it from you. This is where their emotional defense mechanism kicks in. It urges them to protect themselves from this perceived uncertainty. So they start to generate certainty by pulling back with cold behavior. As a small example, if you think about choosing a restaurant to go to, if you're always saying, well, I don't know, what do you want? What do you think we should do? I need to hear your opinion. This brings out frustration within your partner. They feel unsupported and like you can't take the initiative to make a strong decision. This fear or disagreement within the relationship actually creates more cold behaviors from your partner. This lack of initiative triggers your partner's feelings of instability and activates this emotional defense mechanism and leads to cold or distancing behavior. The next trigger is emotional volatility. So for example, if your partner is having a tough day, is having a tough week, maybe even criticizes you, When you react with defensiveness, criticism, or anger, this is kind of like setting off an emotional bomb for anyone. Your partner's emotional defense mechanism is sensitive to unpredictability. Everyone's is. When someone feels like they could explode at any moment, this feels threatening and it feels unsafe. Emotional volatility in human beings signals danger. Your brain is wired for survival. It's the same with your partner's brain that interprets outbursts or defensive reactions as a potential threat to their well-being or the connection of the relationship. This can lead their emotional defense mechanism to start taking over. It causes them to shut down, lash out, or withdraw emotionally. For example, let's say you come home from work after a tough day and your partner asks how you're doing, and you snap and you say, "How do you think I'm doing? I had a shitty day at work." This can cause this pulling back, this cold behavior within your partner. Your partner, coming from a place of care, not expecting this volatile reaction, can start to feel that defense within themselves. The next main trigger that can trigger this emotional defense mechanism is inconsistency between your words and your actions. When your actions don't match your promises, it erodes trust and it destroys emotional safety. This creates doubt about your reliability, which can activate your partner's emotional defense mechanism. Consistency is the cornerstone of emotional safety. Now, if you want a deeper dive into emotional safety, I've actually done a video on it, which I'll link to up above and in the description down below. But emotional safety is the feeling of being able to express your feelings without negative consequences. When your words and your actions don't align, it creates confusion, it creates instability, and it causes your partner to question your intentions or sincerity. They don't feel safe to be vulnerable with you because you are not consistent in showing up in the way that you respond. And this is where their emotional defense mechanism takes over, and it prompts behaviors like withdrawing or hypervigilance to protect against this disappointment within the relationship. So they may seem small in the moment, but the impact on your partner's emotional safety is really big. If you're constantly activating your partner's emotional defense mechanism, it leaves them feeling vulnerable, unprotected, and very unsafe around you. So by recognizing these patterns and addressing them, you can start to create a relationship where you both feel supported, understood, and secure. So when your partner is showing these hot and cold behaviors, what do we do about this? Well, there's actually a 3-step process to address these cold moments. The hot moments are easy to handle, but the cold moments are where we can struggle to know how to show up. And just before I move forward, if you do want more videos like this on repairing, building, and growing healthy relationships, then feel free to subscribe to my channel for new videos every single week. So when emotions are running high, your first job is to regulate yourself. This step is critical because your emotional state, as we've spoken about, sets the tone for how the conversation is going to unfold. When you're stressed, your brain's limbic system, the emotional center of the brain, takes over. Logical thinking can become really difficult, and this can lead to you being defensive and escalating the conflict. So being able to regulate yourself, pulling you out of the fight or flight mode, allows you to respond thoughtfully. And this in itself takes practice. Learning how to pause and breathe, taking a slow, deep breath. This slows your heart rate and calms your nervous system. Grounding yourself, focusing on something tangible, like your feet on the ground or the texture of an object in your hand. This helps you to anchor yourself to the present moment right now. Naming the emotional internally for yourself. For example, I'm feeling frustrated right now. This can help you to gain a little bit of clarity in the moment, and it will help you avoid reacting impulsively. Doing these steps is crucial for staying calm. Staying calm, performing these steps is crucial. It signals to your partner that the situation is safe. This is really important because their emotional defense mechanism is looking for any sign of threat, especially if they've had a history of seeing these triggers come up before. Your calmness is going to create a foundation for the connection instead of conflict. And step 2 is empathize. Understanding your partner's perspective. So once you've calmed yourself, the next step is to shift your focus to your partner. Empathy is about seeing the world through your partner's eyes, understanding their emotions and what might have triggered them. So if your partner is showing these cold behaviors, rather than getting defensive, letting your ego get in the way, taking the time to put yourself into your partner's shoes, understanding your partner's emotional reaction, no matter how confusing or disproportionate it may feel to you, this is their way of signaling distress. So if your partner is displaying cold behaviors, angry, upset, or threatening to leave you, taking the time to pull yourself out of yourself and into your partner's shoes is a really crucial skill. This empathy allows you to decode their feelings and respond in a way that fosters connection. Being able to empathize, being able to put yourself in their shoes and remove your ego from the equation is really, really crucial. Getting into the habit of asking yourself questions. What might they be feeling right now? Are they feeling unsupported, unheard, or unimportant? Acknowledging the triggers that we've spoken about. Think about what actions, intentional or unintentional, might have activated their defense mechanism. Did something remind them of a past hurt or insecurity? And then make sure that you're listening actively. So if they're sharing their feelings, focus on their words without interrupting or planning your response. This isn't about scripts. This is about listening and taking the time to understand them. Try to pick up on what they're saying and what they might also be leaving unsaid within their feelings. This really matters because empathy shows your partner that you're on their side. It helps them feel understood and it reduces the intensity of their emotional response. When they're triggered, this helps them to calm their own limbic system and get you to a place where you can both feel heard and understood. When somebody feels truly heard, they're less likely to need to have defensive reactions. And step 3 is to validate. This is acknowledging their feelings. Validation is the final and most important step in this whole process. This is where you communicate to your partner that their emotions are real, they're valid, and they're worthy of acknowledgement, even if you don't agree with their perspective. Because bear in mind that you are you. So you can disagree because you've had your experiences and you don't feel the way that they feel. But validating isn't about agreement. Validating is understanding that their feelings are true to them. It's not about fixing the problem or assigning blame. It's about showing that you respect them as an individual different to you and that their feelings and their experience are real. And in order to do this, you can acknowledge their emotions by saying, I can see why you'd feel that way. Or that must have been really frustrating to you. You must be feeling really hurt by me right now or really scared of this situation. And it's important to foster a non-judgmental attitude. So avoid saying things like, you're overreacting or it's not that big of a deal. Saying things like this invalidate feelings, and this actually increases more defensive mechanisms within themselves. Ultimately, if they don't feel that you can understand them, they will have more of a reason to feel defensive. They will have more of a reason to pull away. And you can validate by reflecting back, paraphrasing what they've shared to show you understand. So for example, it sounds like you felt really unsupported when I hesitated earlier. Is that how you're feeling? During this time, this is not a time to explain yourself or justify your actions. This is about focusing solely on their feelings. Validation matters because it reassures your partner that their emotions are safe with you. It diffuses defensiveness and it invites collaboration instead of conflict. When your partner feels validated, they're more likely to open up and work with you to find solutions if needed. And this can be an easy, simple loop to go around within the conversation. Being able to do this over and over again and show up in this way in a consistent manner will tell your partner over time that it's safe to talk with you. It's safe to express themselves to you. And this over time will also diffuse the need to have this emotional defense mechanism. Communication is one of the cornerstones of good relationships. This is one of many skills that cultivate a safe environment for your partner and for you to develop and lead this relationship in the right direction. And if you do want to learn deeper skills in order to start mastering this hot and cold behavior within your relationship and work with me, then join me on my free relationship bootcamp, where you'll learn the same steps and tools that all of my members use to start turning their relationships around. Just click on the link in the description to grab your spot. Learning this loop and building emotional safety will put you in good stead in order to start building the other elements of relationships, which is intellectual intimacy and goal synergy. Building emotional safety is a skill itself. I've done a deeper dive video on it, which I'll link to on the screen. But understanding deeply emotional safety, how it's built and how it's broken, is really crucial for mastering your relationship. The more that you can learn the right skills in order to rebuild it and repair the relationship long term. So I'll leave you with that deeper dive video on emotional safety, and I will see you over there.